Peace, my name is Dylan, Michael Salmon, professionally known as Hawaii Mike, and welcome back to the Mask Off podcast. I'm sitting here with a friend of, 2025, maybe 20 years-ish, somewhere around there. We definitely go back to the flat brim days.
Yeah.
That was definitely when we started. Y'all know him professionally as A-Trak, but your name is?
Alain.
Well, your whole name?
Alain.
Okay, cool. And you are from?
From Montreal, Canada.
All right, cool. So we are basically start like just kind of talking about your history, how you kind of grew up, what was family life like, what were your surroundings, you know. I still haven't been to where you're from. You're part of Canada. I've been wanting to. Everybody tells me it's incredible up there, but I just have not been. So tell me exactly where you're from, and then your family life, and like what was that like growing up?
Grew up in Montreal, Canada. Pretty tight-knit family. Parents are still together even now, which is a trip because they've been married for 60 years now or something.
Oh, wow.
And is it that long? 50 something, I don't know. Anyways. And my brother Dave, who you know, my older brother, it's just me and him. So, two siblings and the two parents in a house that, is pretty central in the city. And grew up speaking both French and English, and with parents that studied literature and then went into translation and linguistics and things like that. So a household that I would say also was kind of on the literary sort of cultural side of things. So I think that also means like a house where the arts and, and kind of intellectual discussions and, foreign films and things like that were, valued. Because a lot of people ask if, when people figure out that Dave and I are both musicians, the first question is like, are your parents musicians?
Yeah.
And it's always like, they're not, but there was like at least a certain value given to the arts in general. My family is Jewish. My mom's side is Moroccan.
Oh, okay.
French-speaking Moroccan. So my mom was born in Casablanca. She moved to Montreal when she was a teenager. Yeah. My dad's family is English speaking, Ashkenazi Jewish. And so, the two sides of the family were culturally kind of different too. The Moroccan side and my mom's side is vast, expansive. There's, we have relatives everywhere, including in New York.
Okay.
So I have, I had some family in Queens. So even when Dave and I were quite young, we would come down to New York with our mom. Mom loves New York, and she's close to her cousins here. So we'd come down here, and as we discovered hip hop, it was also like, well, let's go see, the aunties in New York, and then go explore the city,
And how old were you, just for context, how old was that? Like, how old were those trips?
I'd say like right from the age of 11, 12.
Okay.
I was coming down in New York when I was younger than that, but I think like that's probably the age where I started having like more of like a curiosity.
Got it. And so was New York like where music was really introduced, or was like your brother first was doing something more?
So my brother he started playing the guitar when he was really young. I want to say 9 or something. And he was playing in bands with friends, when he was like in middle school or whatever. And so I always kind of followed the music that him and his friends were listening to, just as the younger brother that tagged along a lot. So initially, if he was learning the guitar and like listening to Hendrix and Zeppelin, I would just take those cassettes and listen to that. And our dad had a little record player with a couple of albums, so I'd be like, exploring on there too. And then, and it kind of went from, that sort of classic rock thing to, I was really into like the Chili Peppers around like Blood Sugar Sex Magic. And it was easy to go from that to like the Beastie Boys and Cypress Hill, in like 92, 93. And then from there, it's easy to go to the Far Side and De La. But then it's like, well, what's this Wu-Tang thing? And then, everything kind of went down that path.
Dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see how New York obviously could be that huge influence.
Yeah,
coming
but
down.
also, but Montreal is a city where there's a lot of music and a lot of culture everywhere. Um, yeah, one thing about Montreal, it's like the cold months, you're inside so much because it's just too cold to do anything that as soon as the winter passes, the whole rest of the year, there's a ton of activities outside because people just value that time where they're not freezing their ass off. So there's a lot to do in the spring, summer, and fall. There's a lot of cultural festivals. The Montreal Jazz Festival is world renowned. Just for Laughs is a comedy festival that's world renowned, probably bigger than any comedy festivals in the States. All the American comics go there. But there would also be like African music, cinema festivals, and foreign film festivals. I remember going to like animation shorts festivals at like the Repertoire Theater that would be like walking distance from our house. Like there's just a lot of stuff like that. There's kind of a difference with the way that multiculturalism is treated in Canada compared to America. Like the usual sort of analogy is the melting pot versus the salad bowl. So people say that America is a melting pot.
Okay.
America's a melting pot. So when you immigrate in Canada, in America, you become American. And suddenly it's just like, I mean, I got my American citizenship a couple of years ago. I have the dual citizenship. And like when they gave me the little flag, when I got my passport, and I had to like swear an oath to bear arms for America, I was like, oh shit, this is no joke. Like suddenly you're like America number one.
You're indoctrinated.
Yes, and you're expected to like go to the ball game and root for the local team. When people say that Canada is a salad bowl, what that means is that there's much less of a pressure to assimilate, and people's own culture, where they come from, is celebrated. In whatever Canadian city they move to. So in Montreal, we could go to like a Middle Eastern outdoor market, you know what I mean? Or just all the communities that make up the sort of quilt of multiculturalism in Montreal were sort of really in your face showcased.
Yep.
You know, as opposed to this sort of like everyone becomes American.
Forget who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and then like look at everybody different, which is really dope, is that you get to I guess you don't think about ethnicity as much, right?
Right. Or you sort of there's a curiosity about it for people in at least the bigger cities in Canada. As opposed to this more sort of like private life. I think for certain people in American cities, their ethnic background or religious background or any of those things will sometimes be like their home life.
Yep.
Whereas like when I was even just the neighborhoods I grew up in Montreal, it was just a little bit more of like let's go like the butcher's Italian and let's go to the Greek restaurant and like there's a Somalian restaurant over here and and it's it was celebrated.
But welcoming, right? It wasn't like separate, like don't.
And I'm not saying that there wasn't any racism at all, but because there's no utopia and humans are going to be humans, but like at least to a certain extent it was more in the open and celebrated.
Yeah. Well, I like the salad bowl analogy because it's like that makes it feel like everybody has their own ingredients.
Yeah, and
everybody
contributes.
Yeah.
And everybody has their place.
Whereas here, it's like you said, like, oh, now you're American. You have to act like this and do these things.
And I think that pushes people to repress stuff or to just, not know what to do about part of their identity. But yeah, so I grew up being a pretty serious student also, and I was kind of like...
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, well, gym was my weak spot. Like, gym would bring down my average.
That's amazing, because usually it's the opposite.
Yes.
Usually like, everybody's like, gym is the easiest, that's no problem.
No. For me, I did good, whether it be French, English, history, geography, whatever, all the sciences. So I ended up specializing in sciences, and I studied physics. I started university with a physics degree, but I was kind of into everything except gym.
I feel like physics plays a role in what you do now,
Sure.
right? I mean, every action has equal and opposite reaction,
Sure.
right? I moved it this way, does that.
Yeah, for me, yeah, I think certain DJs are very intuitive
Yep.
with their movements, but I was always very analytical.
Got
So,
it.
like,
I mean,
I would like sort of think of a trick in my head before doing it because I would like break it down and then teach my hands to do it.
okay. So school.
Yeah.
So like, what was your like average? Like, you were a pretty good student.
Okay, so
like,
I went to I was like in the top 2 or 3 students in my class.
Okay.
Every year. I went to a French lycée, which is like the French system from France, and the grades are like out of 20 there.
Okay.
And it's not really the same scale. Like you can't just like multiply it by 5 to see the equivalent out of 100. Like French schools are just very demanding.
Okay.
So I would say like a 16 out of a 20 is like 97 out of 100. Like it's not exact. It's not proportional that way. They really, if you get a 19 out of 20, it's like a freak.
Does anybody get 20 out of 20? Yeah. Does it happen?
I mean, maybe in math where something is either like right or wrong, you can get it. But like in philosophy or French or history or whatever, where there's nuance, they don't really let you get too close to that 20. You know, you're happy. If you get a 16 or 17, you're killing it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I actually never asked about that, the kind of grading system out there.
Yeah. And, you know, there's the lycée system, which is like I mentioned, the French system that ends with what they call a French baccalaureate. There's schools like that all over, like even in New York there's one. And
Yeah.
most cities around the world, there's like one school where, you know, if a family comes from a country that has those schools, whether it's France or somewhere else, that, you know, they can send their kids there. But, you know, obviously there's also local French-Canadian, you know, public schools that were also in French. But our mom being from Casablanca, she grew up going to this type of lycée school.
Got it.
Back in Morocco, so she sent me and Dave to a similar school.
Oh, so you guys were both in the same school, everything?
Yep.
And how many years you guys apart?
Yeah, we're 4 years apart. So in those years, it's like, you know, it's still like we weren't that close to where, you know, we were like actually in the same school for many years. But we did go to the same schools.
Because it's like grade school and high school, the same kind of way, or is
Similar.
it
There's no, like, middle school isn't separated in Canada the way that it is in America.
Got it. So that would be like 7 years, or no?
Okay, so grade school or elementary school, 1 to 6.
Okay.
And then what we call high school is 7 to 11, I believe. And then there's this thing called Cégep, which is 2 years between high school and college.
Okay.
So kind of a pre-college thing. So yeah, it's
Okay.
still,
So you guys were in that same school, but then that's what about, you said from 7 to 11? So that's still only like 4 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so it's like you were like a freshman and he was gone after that year.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys didn't get to hang out.
No.
So it's really the New York thing where you guys started probably clicking on the music.
Well, it was always just me and him at home. So we did spend a lot of time growing up. I'm just saying that like at school, there's not that many years where we were like at the same school at the same time, but we were together a lot outside of school.
And then did he DJ at all?
No, Dave was just initially he was playing the guitar, playing in bands, and then when I started messing around with scratching and DJing, we were both getting into hip hop, so he got into making beats.
Okay.
So on one of those New York trips, he bought 2 samplers. He bought a Akai S950
Okay.
and an SP1200 that didn't work.
He got?
Yeah. So he learned how to use the S950 and he started making rap beats. And so we both would make music in the basement of our parents' house. And so he had his little section where he was making beats. We shared a record collection.
Okay.
You know, so whatever, he was sampling stuff. It was like we had the same records, but I was learning how to scratch and he was learning how to make beats.
And what year was this about?
This started around 95.
95, so you were what?
I was
11?
13. Yeah, I was born in 82.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So So the crazy
So
thing
wait,
is,
so wait.
2 years later, I was world champion.
That's what I'm about to ask. That was
Yeah.
only 2 years?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And so we sort of, we kind of like infiltrated the local hip hop scene pretty fast. It's, you know, it's not a very big scene.
Yep.
The one thing that's particular about the hip hop scene in Montreal is there was a language divide a little bit, you know, because there's French rap and there's English rap. But with him as a beat maker and me as a scratch DJ, we could cross that divide.
got it.
As opposed to if someone's an actual rapper,
Yep.
they were, you know, would run with this crew or that crew or play in this venue or that venue. But we were just on the music side, so we could work with people on the, you know, English or French speaking side of the scene. Dave was also messing around with graffiti a little bit, so, you know, he was kind of making inroads in the local hip hop scene with that. And even like a little bit prior to that, when he was still playing live instruments with, you know, in a band with some of his friends, he had started playing in a few venues a bit. So he kind of had a foot into some of the venues and the hip hop scene. And he was like 17. And he was starting to also get involved with like a college radio show, because in Montreal never had like a hip hop radio station. Yep. It was only college radio. So he was like getting involved with a college radio show and just kind of doing stuff in the community, even though he's only 17. And I was the younger brother, 13, tagging along and learning how to scratch really fast and starting to show up at a couple of events here and there where I'd be allowed to go in and jumping on decks and scratching and people being like, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
Who's the kid? You know, and that was kind of our flow for a couple of years, where he was making beats for local rappers and I was starting to get noticed as a young scratch DJ, you know, and meeting some of the local DJs who really welcomed me in. You know, because they see like a little kid that's
like,
scratching.
who were those guys? Who were the first guys to really?
So the first couple of DJs that I met, so there was a DMC battle in '96. So I did the '97 battle, right? So in '96, my brother's already got his college radio show. So the DMC happens. I was 12, so I couldn't go myself, but I heard about it. We would go to like the local record store and you know, so the battle was last weekend, this guy won, that guy won. So there was a guy called Devious who I met. There was Kid Koala, who is still known to this day worldwide as a DJ, but at that point was starting to make a little bit of noise. And there's a couple of other local DJs, someone called DJ Storm, who DJ'd for a rap group that I really liked. And there was this guy called Choice, a couple others. So there's like 4 or 5 DJs on the hip hop side who, you know, were kind of holding down the city. I met them kind of through Dave's radio show, and especially when that DMC battle happened. And yeah, like I, you know, went over to to someone's house, you know, have a little jam scratch session, and they're like, "Yo, you can really scratch. What the hell?" So they called the other. They're like, "Yo, have you seen this kid? He can scratch." Go to someone else's house. They're all like 10 years older than me, or at least 5, 6 years older than me. Yeah, they're like 5, 6, yeah. So I'm 13 and they're like in their early 20s. And they're like, yo, there's a kid who can scratch, you know? and I started, you know, showing up at, you know, this was the era of like talent shows, like really community-based.
And now, are these in like schools or clubs or mixed?
I think the first time that I like scratched in front of a crowd, it was there was a graffiti festival that started happening. It ended up being an annual thing for years. It was called Under Pressure. So this was like an outdoor event. They got like legal walls for graph, and you know, they get the local hip hop DJs to play music for a weekend while, you know, a couple of graph artists are painting. I went up there because I had met one of the other DJs. I started scratching, and again, people are like, what's going on here? You know, and then I remember there was kind of a talent show that was, I think, at McGill University, which was like the main college, but it was like very much of this grassroots thing. It was a grassroots era for hip hop in general, because you know,
especially there though, it wasn't like you were in New York. You know what I'm saying? So everything is still probably really.
It was, but even when you think about it, 90, you know, this is '96 that we're talking about. you know, it was kind of the backpack era of New York
sure.
too, where like you could, if you were here, you know, the equivalent would be like something at New Eurekan Poets Cafe, for instance. You know, that sort of an open mic night, that kind of event. There was a lot of those in general in those years. So as I got into hip hop, that sort of underground backpack movement, the Raucous era, and you know, Mos Def and Company Flow and all that, that was also like the side of hip hop that we really embraced.
Got it.
You know, because it was very much like, yo, we're learning the elements. And Dave's tagging and I'm scratching. And so it's that spirit of hip hop.
Yeah, no, which is great to come from that.
For sure.
You know, instead of it being like now, it's just like, I don't even know what hip hop is.
Exactly. Like other eras where people are just trying to get on for the sake of getting on. But this was like a very community-minded era. And so I'm very grateful to have come up in that era.
Which is dope. And when you started, you was like, I'm scratching, but was it always just to scratch and like be in the competitions, or were you trying to like DJ? Like, well, at that moment,
it started with I started just with scratching.
So you weren't even trying to mix yet, like.
I probably didn't have enough records to play a set. I had a couple records that I learned how to scratch on, but I really studied these videotapes of battles, the DMC battles, you know, or
and so
like.
Who was the champs then? Like.
Rock Raider won when I was just learning how to scratch. And then in 96, it was this guy, DJ Noise from Denmark.
Yeah. Okay.
He was ill with the wordplay. So, but I really studied the Scratch Pickles, Qbert, Mixmaster Mike, you know, D-Styles and Shortcut and them. I really studied the Executioners and the Beat Junkies, those three crews.
Yep.
You know, and then I was really influenced by Premier because I was listening to all his records, you know, Jazzy Jeff and Pete Rock. Like, that's probably who I learned from the most, is that generation of DJs.
And now we're in a group chat with all
of them. With a lot of them,
which is wild.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right, so you're 13.
I'm 13, and I'm still in school, but I'm starting to DJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, you get to DMC. Mm-hmm. And that was the first one you ever been to?
First battle I ever entered was the Montreal.
Oh, I was about to say, okay.
No, but it's a straight line.
Yep.
Like the Montreal elimination or regionals, whatever they would call it. And I was.
Oh, because you had to do a process to get to DMC.
Yeah. So, DMC has branches in each country,
yep.
and each country's branch will do eliminations for a couple cities. So I start by entering the Montreal battle because at the record shop that I would go to, they had the little flyers that's like, yo, this battle's coming up. And, you know, me and Dave are at the store together, and he's like, man, I think you might be ready, you know? And I start putting together a little 6-minute routine, and, you know, he was giving me a ton of feedback and just helping me, like, fine-tune it. Even though he wasn't a DJ himself, he was a musician, so he had, like, a producer's ear.
Yep.
So it's like he kind of produced my routines.
Nice.
You know, like, oh, this part's, you're losing my attention. This part's slow. Find another trick. This part's good. Keep it going longer. It's impressive. That kind of feedbaback.
And I can just see him doing that right now. Like, knowing his energy and how he is.
Yeah, it's super focused. And like, he would take it like as seriously as if it was him, or maybe even more seriously.
Yeah.
And I was just the little karate kid, like just working every day after school. Like once I got into scratching and realized that I had some sort of knack for it, every day after school I came straight home and practiced.
When did you know? Like, how long did it take for you to get that feeling of like, nah, this is really like,
pretty quick, man.
It was quick,
Like I'm not a huge believer in natural talent, in the sense that I think that like everybody that's great at what they do has to work for it.
Yes.
But I think there could be a bit of an affinity, or like you know, you can have like an ease at something when you start. Yeah. Then you have to work like crazy. Yeah. So, you know, I think at that era where everybody tried scratching at one point on their family's record player, when I tried it, it sounded kind of half decent, whereas for most people it sounded
horrible.
Like horrible.
Yeah, I tried that shit.
Right,
I was skipping needles and like,
whereas for me,
but
it
the
was
straight
like,
arm, like
all that stuff. When I tried it, it kind of sounded like scratching.
God.
And then I went straight into focus mode, you know, and just like, all right, this is going to be my thing, and like as soon as Dave saw me too, he was like, this is kind of crazy. Like that you're able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You should really take this seriously. Like straight up, like do this every day. You could be really good at this.
And I'm guessing you're like, yeah, it sounded pretty good. I'm pretty sure those first you were like sounded really good, and then to somebody, you know what I mean? Like
Maybe,
to you,
yeah.
it's like whatever. Because we've gotten to now, you're like, yeah, back then I was just fucking around. It's just, it was whatever. But to where you got now, but to somebody else listening to that, it was probably like, so it's.
To someone else, it's probably like you're scratching. Like,
yeah,
you can actually do it.
Yeah, I would say it's like your alchemy, right? Like I say that's how I am with food, right?
Yeah.
Like I was never trained to do it. It's just something that comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to work hard at it. Yes, I have to practice constantly.
Yeah.
But that output always works out somehow.
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. So I think I had like some sort of ease to start, but then I really, really dove in very methodically, and I would like watch these videotapes of the DJs I looked up to, or listen to records that had scratches on them, and I would just sort of analyze it and like organize my practice hours and be like, all right, I have 3 hours today from when I got home from school until dinner time, because after dinner I'm doing homework. So, that from like 4 to 7 or whatever, that's practice time. So I'm going to spend the first hour working on, maybe my left hand, the second hour on my right hand, or like this scratch that I'm trying to learn, I'm going to practice it to a slow beat, and then I'm going to practice it to a faster beat, and then I'm going to practice it to an even faster beat, and really just getting the muscle memory down. Or I would like, it was very methodical. Like
That's something I'm thinking about that.
Yeah,
like,
I started like naming my scratches, and I would keep lists of my scratches, and I would like go down the list and make sure that I like mastered all of them, and would learn how to like put patterns together. Because it's like if someone's learning how to do guitar solos or scales, like maybe they're learning one scale and they could do it when they just stick to that scale. But the real flow is when you can just really move from one thing to another. So I could do this one scratch, repeat it. I could do this other scratch, repeat it. But I was listening to other better scratch DJs, and they were just making all these like sentences out of it, where it goes from this to that. So, even to master that, that sort of ease of flowing from one thing to another. Yeah, I started making lists where I was like naming my stuff, and then I came up with like a notation system where I could even like draw and notate the scratches, and I was like very, very scientific about it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then for like routines and beat juggles, like when you hear someone freak Rock the Bells or Nobody Beats the Biz or whatever, I started by copying what
bad meaning bad, not bad meaning good.
Yeah, let's say I'm seeing Rock Raider or Qbert or one of those DJs doing a routine on a classic record. I would start by copying what they did to learn what it's like, really on some muscle memory, hand-eye coordination kind of tip. Learn what the motions are and what it's supposed to feel like. And then I started coming up with my own routines, where I would pick the record out and try to come up with my own patterns. So I went at it like that for about 2 years, and entered the Montreal battle, and just prepared a lot, like practiced a lot, and went at it thinking like, well, maybe I can place in the top 3. And I won that, and a couple months later was the Canadian finals, where they brought in Qbert to be a judge even, and Toronto's a bigger city, and so you grew up in Montreal, you just hear about the Toronto DJs.
Yeah.
So there's like this assumption that they're going to win because they
Yeah.
won the last couple years before, and you're just like, all right, well, one of these Toronto guys is going to win, but maybe I can place in the top 3. But I won. And they're like, yo, you're going to Italy for the World Finals. And I'm like, I go to school. Like, what do you mean I go to, I got to figure that out. And then my mom came with me to Italy.
Okay.
Because Dave had finals at school, so he couldn't travel with me. And yeah, at that point I'm 15, and there started being like, I got to Italy for the DMC World Championships, and they've got all the past champions as judges. I meet Cash Money, I meet Rock Raider, I meet all these amazing DJs that I look up to. And there's kind of this buzz of like, yo, there's this kid who's really young, because like everybody else is in their, easily in their 20s. And I'm this like fresh-faced little 15-year-old, my voice hadn't changed. And, you know, I brought my turntables and mixer, flew with them to Italy to be able to practice in my hotel room the day before the battle, because there's no way that I'm going in there without having just practiced and really like being as prepared as possible. And I won. And I'll always remember also that like I won, and there's two things that happened right after. One, for the first time, there was kind of some naysayers. Whereas up until that point, everyone was super like supportive, excited, enthusiastic. Like, yo, what? Whoa, there's this kid, and whoa, like this is like the new face of hip hop. Wow, this is like never seen someone this young. Da da da. Whereas then when I win, I started getting wind that like that some of the DJs who didn't win were like, yo, he just won because he's a kid, and da da da, or that kind of stuff. So I had to learn how to deal with that. That's one thing, and also, you know, I started putting a lot of pressure on myself. So there's like the stress level changed. And there was even just this sort of like fatigue that hit me for like a whole week after the battle was done, where I was like so focused in my preparation that as soon as I was done with the battle and won, suddenly my body was just sort of like, now you rest. And like, I have no say in that. Yeah. Which like in the years and years and years that followed after that, when I started, you know, when I continued to tour more and juggling, whether it be school and DJing or later on like other musical projects and DJing, and you know, just all the different parameters that will, you know, make you feel exhausted or in shape or burnt out or inspired or like all that stuff. Like the more time went by, the more I feel like I had to really figure out what can make me feel in shape or not. Yep. And even like mind body kind of stuff.
Yeah, mentally and physically.
Yeah. That at that point in time, all that was new.
Okay.
It didn't dawn on me that like, even though I didn't feel it on the surface at first, that I was probably nervous, I was probably stressed. Like that first battle, I wasn't outwardly stressed. I was, because I had nothing to lose.
Probably happened too fast also, like, right?
It happened so fast that I was just like, I'm going to go up there and do my best. Yay! And then my body just kind of lays me out for a bunch of days. And I was just like, that's weird, you know? But with the...
Especially at 15.
Yeah.
Right?
You're
energetic, you're young, you're supposed to have all the energy in the world.
Yeah. But you know, in the years that followed, I was entering more battles, and I ended up winning more stuff. But it all felt, every year that passed, even in those short years, it all started feeling a little bit more complex, where I had more on the line. Yep. If I entered another battle, if I lost, I was a world champion who lost. You know, because my thing was, when I started hearing about a couple of people doubting me a little bit, I was like, all right, I'll just win another one. What are they going to say then? Okay. You know, but I came back the next year and I didn't win. Craze beat me in 98. Then I went and swept a bunch of more stuff in the year that followed. But
well, how did you deal with that first loss though? Was it tough?
In hindsight, I dealt okay with it. Okay. It's kind of, it takes a lot to knock me down, you know? So I think that year, that battle was in Paris. Craze and I really clicked even before the battle, because we all flew there like maybe 2 days before. And we knew that it was kind of going to be between me and him at the end of the day, but we were both kind of on some like, you know, coming from a similar culture of, you know, North American hip hop, kind of a b-boy mentality, loosely speaking. And we're like, all right, we're kind of like speaking the same language here. So, but I had some problems during my performance. The knob of my crossfader flew off mid-routine. And of course you only have, it's like the Olympics. Like you have one shot to do, it's like a gymnastics routine and your fucking shoe flies off or something. It's like, oh fuck. that, and the needle skips, and I was like, ah. So I ended up placing third, and but all things considered, I came home and I was like, it'll be all right. I was kind of like, you know what, next year, rather than betting everything on one battle, I'm gonna enter a couple things.
Okay.
So even if I lose one or two of them, I'll win some of the other ones.
Okay.
You know, so that was like a big strategic shift.
But that's like a mental strategic shift,
Yeah.
right? Like
yeah, and it's sort of like, all right. I fell down, but I'm gonna get back up. And how do I make sure I don't fall down again?
And is this it's just innately in you?
Yeah.
Or is this
kinda.
so? Is this how you've always been? Like, or is this?
I guess, yeah. I definitely. I think I'm like, there's something in me that's wired to just like push. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go and put my all into this. And if it doesn't work, I kind of fall down, get back up, and I'm like, I'll think about it for a sec. Should I adjust something? And then I just push. But to the point where that stubbornness, probably a little bit of overconfidence too, in hindsight. I think it takes a little bit of delusion to be an artist.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Even to be a 15-year-old kid out of Canada that's like, I can be the world champion. It's like, okay, that takes some.
Yeah.
You got to be a little cocky.
But you also have to see yourself as that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing
Sure.
a lot of people can't do.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They can't see themselves and then they don't follow their dreams.
Yeah.
They just kind of stop.
But that element of it is also how Dave and I always worked super close, where he has vision like crazy.
And I always see him like as the greatest cheerleader.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. And even with like, you know, our whole friend group, or for a lot of friends, he's always been the one that would tell someone like, yo, you could be doing this. Like he just sees stuff in people. So he had the vision in me of like, yo, you could win these battles and people would freak out to see like a little Canadian innocent-faced kid.
Right?
Like he saw that before I even envisioned it, and I'm a workhorse.
Yeah.
I'm a crazy workhorse. So he would have all these ideas, and think 3 chess moves ahead, and I'd be like, I bet, and I would just go and work, and figure, and I was pretty good at it, you know. So I would just figure it out and come up with more tricks, and I'm down to just go in the battlefield and just fucking go at it. Like that part's easy for me. I'm able to like tune out the chatter and just go in with the hyper focus. That's what I was able to do from a young age. But I think, you know, even with that, you know, by year 2 or 3 or 4 of doing these battles and like putting everything on the line each time and navigating changes in the scene and like getting a little bit older myself, there's like as much as on the surface I could just like plow ahead, I definitely started also feeling, you know, more of kind of like uneasy feelings inside. To the point where like when I was like 18 or so, I had like a burnout.
Okay.
And I was like no idea where it came from. I remember I went to Hawaii for a gig, and I just kind of like had, I mean, maybe it was a panic attack or something. And then luckily I didn't deal with that too much afterwards. But like there was this one instance of me, you know, flying to a whole other time zone for a gig, not even realizing that plays into fatigue.
Yep.
That physical fatigue goes and wears on your mental fortitude or whatever, just like aptitude to go into a show in front of a crowd that you don't know what they're going to want to hear and this and that. I was just kind of like approaching everything at face value. Like, yeah, I'm going to fly to the city, do this gig, doing homework the day before, and I got, you know, exams next week. It's fine. I can do it. And then for the first time, I kind of just like hit a wall of like, I don't think I can go to this show. I don't feel well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of, like everything happened so fast in those short years. 15, 16, 17, 18. I was 5 times world champion. That was a record.
Yep.
I won more battles in those years than other DJs previously, while still being in school, and while trying to figure out.
And going through puberty, and going through like being a young man, and like there's a lot.
Sure, and you know, and even just like going from being a relatively introverted kid to having to learn how to just like talk to people at all these events that are spitting in your ear or asking awkward questions. Well, don't you think that DJ should have beat you, or just like things like that you don't know how to answer, just like, you know. All of that at the same time, I don't think I realized that there was like that the stress and the anxiety of all that was like brewing.
Yeah. Well, nobody gives you a guidebook, right? In life in general, but especially in something like this, when you have this quick ascension, right? And not only ascension, like you said, you're introverted. Now you're in front of crowds, right? Yeah. Performing. Yeah. I mean, think about how many people just can't even do that part. And now you're going by yourself.
Yeah, or that trip, I think I had a friend with me, but but see, a lot of times I was,
but not like, you know, you have a manager, a handler, your parents, or anybody else.
No one who's there to tell you, you know, even just simple stuff like, hey, maybe you shouldn't eat a big heavy meal before your gig because you're gonna be exhausted, you're gonna be digesting, and you'll be tired as hell in front of the crowd.
And you're staying up later probably than you're used to.
And you're in a different time zone and all that stuff.
Right? All those things.
All of that I had to figure out.
And you're playing 21 and over clubs?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm kind of going in there as an 18-year-old, trying to, you know, find my place. But that kind of turned into me trying to sort of study and understand what makes me feel one way, you know, on one given week, and another way on another given week. Because there just started being these big sort of differences in how I felt, where sometimes I was totally fine and I could work insane hours of practice and rehearsals, and I was doing my own bookings, you know, on my parents' fax machine. People are calling the house, booking me in other cities. Kid Koala, who lived in Montreal, he had a manager. I asked that guy to show me their booking contract, and I modified it for my needs. And I was sending contracts myself, doing bookings, figuring out payments at age like 16, 17. Like
in school still.
Yeah, in school. Homework. And then such and such magazine wants to interview me. I was in like The Source, I was in Interview Magazine, all kinds of stuff. They're calling the house. I'm like, I got to remember to be home at this time to do this thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, the first couple interviews come out, you sort of realize that you could say something that comes across in the conversation, but when it's in print, it feels different. So then you're like trying to learn how to, in other words, I was trying to media train myself, managing myself, you know, and there's a point where I got a booking agent, but he wasn't even a manager, he was an agent. He was just like, hey, you're going to Scottsdale in 2 weeks. Okay. So there was a ton of pressure on me to sort of grow up really fast and just take on these very real responsibilities. So like, yo, you need to make that flight, da-da-da.
And back then, it wasn't as easy as now.
No. Right. No, you had to have the printed
tickets, right? You lose your ticket, you're screwed.
You lose your ticket, you don't have a flight anymore.
You don't have a flight anymore, right? Yeah. So to be that organized, but again, I think your just methodical approach to everything in general is probably what helps, because that being methodical also says discipline to me. Yeah. Right? And being disciplined allows you the ability to do more. Yeah. Right? Because you're meticulous about details. You're seeing all these things. And then you're learning of absorbing these things. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. But the flip side of that is I think there's a part of me that had to grow up really fast, where like at 16, 17, like I said, I was like doing my own contracts and dealing with press and all kinds of stuff. But I think there's another side of me that that was almost like robbed of like a typical adolescence, you know? So there's kind of like a more of like a emotional growth that had to catch up later, you know, where I get to my early 20s and like there's all kinds of just normal growing up activities, or not activities, experiences
Okay.
that I had kind of like an unusual version of, just from being on the road all the time and just having this like split life of like Montreal life and playing gigs, you know. half
And
the
were you a
time.
completely different person at home versus like that? Was it just feel completely like, or
Not really, not that much. Um, I just think that I don't know. I just think that in a general sense, the way that I had to assume responsibilities very fast kind of like left out a couple things, you know. So in certain respects, a lot of my 20s, I felt like I was playing catch up with.
like what kind of things were you catching up with?
I mean, especially anything that's like romantic, dating kind of life, but even just like relationships in the general sense, like even within friendships, like expectations of, you know, on both sides of a friendship, um, I think when I was younger, there was, I think a lot of the people around me saw me working so hard on this thing that was kind of exceptional that I felt like I was like allowed a lot of things in terms of like maybe
okay.
not showing up to certain stuff. Or that.
Okay.
Well, it's like people would be like, well, Alain's working so hard, he's got a crazy life. And I think when a couple of years later, I had to sort of confront that and be like, all right, I don't want my friends to just like treat me different in terms of what they expect from me as a friend, because that's not balanced. You know, and even understanding that there's something that felt weird about that.
But that, again, that takes a lot of self-awareness. Did you have anybody kind of guiding you, like as a mentor, and somebody you could like rely on or lean into?
In different, you know, in bits and pieces for sure. I always felt like there was many people who were mentors to me. Maybe not quite as much on like a sort of like emotional growth side, but still, you know, there's always someone that I could talk to in general. You know, so again, Dave and I were closest, but there's even a couple of, you know, DJs who really sort of made time for me. And even if it wasn't like a straight up conversation of like, hey, can I talk to you because I'm not feeling well, it would, at least there would be like a sort of role model that I could look at and be like, well, here's how they seem to be dealing with it, you know? So there was that, but like, I remember by my maybe mid to late 20s, I started seeing a therapist for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Just having a sense of like, because of that thing that I described, I was like, all right, like there's, you know.
There was something different about this. I need to address this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like my teenage years were like speed tracked on one level.
Well, it's almost like you skipped.
And like,
Yeah, it's almost like you just jumped over a lot of the things.
Yeah.
Like you said, the dating and probably your virginity, probably, you know, do you guys do prom and all that kind of stuff? Like just all of those kinds of things, right?
Yeah. So, you know, and you hear about like child actors and stories like that, and you're like, all right, I don't want to be like this like maladjusted, you know, adult. So what do I need to confront or what do I need to try to adjust? And it took a while.
Yeah. I mean, it was, now you probably realize it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It's constant work because it's something else.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think there's, not to pat myself on the back, because I've always felt like I have blind spots and a lot of stuff to work on constantly. But I will say that there is something in me that at least would sort of self-observe, kind of like I was alluding, like, you know, why do I get a bout of fatigue after a stressful project? Or how come I can fly to London once and feel this way, do the same trip 3 months later, feel completely different? What, you know, do things build up? Is it how I eat? Is it, you know, why do I come home from a trip and get sick as soon as I don't have a deadline? Like, is there something in the body that just knows that it's not, you know, that it doesn't need to be like in performance mode anymore, and now it can sort of let go? It took a couple of years of those kinds of patterns happening, but there's a point where I started like really clocking a couple things and being like, oh, all right, well, and also even just being like, sometimes you can't even rationally explain it, but there might be just shit building up in the background for months and months, and then out of the blue you just feel beat, and when you feel beat, you're also less psyched or less inspired, and da-da-da. And whereas when I was my first couple of years, I would try to plow through that because I'm an Aries fucking bulldozer of a
and
person.
I'm just gonna push through it.
Yeah, there's a point where I started realizing, like, well, when I do feel, like I'm hitting a wall, if I go for a little walk, it actually helps. So maybe I don't need to just try to push through everything. And it took me many years, but there's a point, maybe because I started so young, I was lucky that even when I got to the sort of time period it took for me to start clocking a couple patterns, maybe I was in my late 20s or so, where I was like, wait a second. All right, this happens when I do this, and maybe it's better if I don't try to push through that, and da-da-da, and because my 20s were a whirlwind.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You went after those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably when I met you, and I moved to New York when I was 24. I was in the middle of a 4-year stint of touring with Kanye, which was crazy. It was amazing, but it was crazy, just demand. You got to just figure it out on the spot. Yo, we're doing the Grammys, we're doing the VMAs live on TV. You're responsible for this. I had to learn how to talk to a string section and tell them what to do, because he would just put all those responsibilities on me, and come home from a 2-month tour with him and try to teach myself how to produce. I'm starting to make remixes. I'm learning how to make beats on a laptop for the first time. I'm starting Fool's Gold. I moved to New York. Suddenly I'm making music. I'm making music as A-Trak. A-Trak is a 5-time world champion DJ. So my music, in my mind, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, has to be worthy of my DJ caliber or whatever. So I'm putting crazy pressure on myself for that too. So my whole 20s was like that. It was just this sort of tornado. And I wouldn't change a thing, because I think I've been able to sustain a career because of all the crazy work I did in those years. But it was a lot. There was a lot of new things that I had to figure out. Because I went from being just a sort of narrow scratch DJ specialist to learning how to rock a party, tour. Oh, we're using Serato, or we're doing the Kanye thing. Oh, I'm getting into this style of music. I'm going to learn how to produce. I'm going to do remixes. Wait, I can't figure it out. Da, 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 da. All that within a span of a couple of years. So it was exhausting. But after a few years of that, I think I started identifying a couple patterns for myself, and kind of realizing that maybe I should allow certain things to flush out when they happen, or that if I, or even just kind of being more realistic with the expectations I put on myself.
Did you start to develop kind of a routine to address these things?
Yeah, but that took me a while too. There's certain things that I feel like I finally sort of figured out better just in recent years. Because that for almost 10 years I had a place in LA also, which that chapter just ended a few months ago. But when I went to LA around the end of 2014, so at this point Fool's Gold had been going on for 7-8 years. I had already had Duck Sauce, Barbra Streisand. A couple of my remixes got really big. Things were going well, but I started getting to a point of near burnout, and just coming home from certain tours and just being on my ass and being I don't know if I can do this shit. And I started going to LA initially for some recording sessions, but also I don't think I realized that my New York life, I would never take a breather. I would never take, I would just kind of push, and then hit a wall and keep getting to this place of why am I so exhausted, or why am I so discouraged? And there's something about LA life that has a bit more of a pace to it.
Yeah.
Where you can't
You can pace it there.
The thing is, in New York, you can do 12 things in a day. In LA, you can't.
You can't. You
So
physically don't have the time to get to those places.
It's physically impossible.
Yep.
So you give yourself 4 things to do that day, and you get them done, and then you have dinner, and you can sort of like chill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and nobody's coming to bother you.
No, and the East Coast is asleep. No one's, when it's
Yep.
10 p.m. for you, no one's calling you and be like, "Yo, can you check that thing?" Da da da. So you go to sleep a little bit more, with your mind a little bit more at ease. I started like trying to exercise a bit. I changed what I was eating, and that became kind of my LA life. But for years, for almost 10 years, I felt like I needed these 2 poles in my life, where New York was the hustle and fool's gold and the culture and keeping my finger on the pulse, and LA was like breathe a little bit, eat a little better, stay at home, record, finish some projects. And it's only kind of after the pandemic that I figured out like a new flow for myself in New York that has little breaks.
Well, you find out you can create boundaries.
Yes, for sure.
We didn't think we could create those boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Because things are so accessible. They're right there.
Everything's right there.
It's like, what do you mean? I can go do that. It's only 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I can go do that. It's only 2 people. And then next thing you know, it's like you said, it's 12, 15 things you did.
Yeah, and it's not even I can do that. Sometimes it's like I have to.
I have to.
Of course I have to go support my friend at their album release. Of course I have to go see so-and-so because they're from out of town. I have to. And like you said, it's only 20 minutes.
Yeah,
it's right there.
It's right there.
But you're never giving yourself a little breather. Yeah. So those lessons came, in spurts every couple of years, including like, I stopped drinking like 9 years ago now.
Okay.
Even that was kind of like even just my body changing too, and being like, I don't feel the same as when I used to go. And
Well, how old were you started drinking?
probably like 16, 17.
Oh, so you were, okay.
When I was like traveling for the DJ trips.
Of course, because you're older, everybody's older than around you. And
for sure, exactly.
So I just have a drink, nobody's looking.
Yeah.
And then
they're putting us in a hotel room. We're like, it's like the
mini bar.
Yeah, it's like when your parents leave town and you have the house for the weekend. Oh, we're in the hotel room? Shit, like one of our friends goes and buys a bottle of something. I don't even know the difference between this alcohol or that alcohol. And yeah, all my DJ friends were 5-6 years older than me. And we're drinking, and I'm just, I how come when I drink this, I feel, I get sick, and that thing, I'm okay, but generally, in my teens and 20s, my body could just kind of handle stuff, and then there's a point where you're like, I don't feel so great, and
Was it tough for you to stop?
Yes and no. When I did finally stop, it was kind of easy because I have a pretty strong like mental resolution. If I do something, I do it, and then I'm pretty like black or white with stuff. What was hard for me was to realize that maybe I should stop, because I was not drinking that much compared to a lot of people around me, I think. So I didn't think that it was an issue for me. Because I work in nightlife. I'm surrounded by people that take it to so much more excess that I'd be like, well, I'm not like them.
Justify it in your mind.
And you're just sort of like, it's not really an issue for me. But then, time and time again, there'd be these little instances where I'd realize that I don't really know my limits that well. I'd be like, oh, damn, I drank more than I'd set out to drink last night. But still, not as much as that person. I'll just drink a little less.
Yep.
And things like that. But like I mentioned, even physically, coming home from like a tour in Europe where everything goes later. I'm DJing till 5 in the morning, and I'm doing like 5 gigs a week, and I'm having just a few drinks at each gig, but I'm out till 5 or 6 a.m. almost every day for like a week and a half. And I come home and I'm like, you can feel like the toxins in your body. And I'd be like, oh, what? I don't really know this feeling. What is this? And again, it doesn't really dawn on me at first that like, no, maybe you should make a lifestyle change. It's just sort of like, for a while I was just like, that's weird.
Yeah. I felt a little off today. I wonder what it was.
Yeah.
Moving around everything.
But when I did stop, I stopped, and that was it. but even when I stopped drinking, I was also in the middle of like figuring out some nutrition stuff.
Okay.
And I was seeing a doctor in LA, and I was like, oh, okay, I have like a sensitivity to certain foods. It's not an allergy, and we're like eliminating stuff and doing little tests. And it's during that time that I also stopped drinking, but I didn't think that I was going to stop for a whole bunch of years. It was kind of like a one thing out of many that like there was like many lifestyle changes at the same time for me, you know? But I remember really feeling like my body talking to me in a way that I don't think it ever spoke to me before. As much for the food stuff as the alcohol, all at that same time, my body just being like, whatever's this thing that just changed, this is better, you know? And next thing you know, it's been years. But yeah, so I feel like every couple of years there's been these little periods where I would get some sort of new awareness of like, a sense of like, maybe I should do this differently, or maybe I should examine that. And even with stuff like therapy, I mentioned there's a therapist that I saw in my late 20s, early 30s, and then I stopped for a while. And then when the pandemic happened, and I was just like, there was like this stillness that came where after a few months it started being this like, why do I feel down, or why do I feel different, or what's this thing that I'm feeling? Then I started talking to someone again. Yeah. So I feel like there's these, you know, these sort of like these points in the road every few years that force me because again, I'm wired to fucking push. Yeah. And then every so often there's something that kind of stops me where I go, do I need to look at something? Do I need to examine something? And then I'm able to, like, then the analytical brain turns on, and I could be like, oh, okay. I start thinking, you know, like a system, and be like, oh, well, I guess this makes sense that this is why I feel that way, and da-da-da. Talk about it a little bit more, and then try to make some changes.
I mean, I'm sure the pandemic was, I mean, for everybody, obviously, but for DJs, they were traveling the world like you were, and especially how you've been going for how many years, to all of a sudden sit down.
It was the first time in my adult life. That pandemic happened when I was, so 2020, I was 38. So yeah, close to 40. And it was the first time in my adult life that I didn't travel.
For an extended time.
Yeah, that like more than a month went by without me going on the road somewhere.
So psychologically, that's interesting to deal with, right? Because you're probably also dealing with like, is this going to happen again? Is this my life now? What am I going to do? And you know,
and are there things I want to change? But yeah, even just understanding like the sort of layers of the awkwardness that came with not playing shows, and even like accepting that like I have a profession where on most weekends I receive love from a crowd. There's a crowd that cheers, that's like, yes, you're great. And it feels a little silly to admit that and to be like, hey, maybe there's a part of me that it's like the sugar habit. You know, you get this
some form of a little addiction.
Yeah, a little thing, a little sweetness that you get, and that if you remove that, that you're gonna feel weird. You're gonna feel like down. Yep. Because you're used to
that adrenaline. It's also
adrenaline and
it's dopamine. It's dopamine. It's all of those things, right?
It's a lot of things. Yeah. That and even beyond the validation itself, there's a whole level of just like the lifestyle of a DJ and someone in the record industry. There's very extreme highs and lows or ups and downs of just like human interaction in general. You know, like you go to an event, someone's screaming in your ear, someone's like, you know, being a punisher, like won't stop talking to you. But also you see someone that you haven't seen in a long time that you're genuinely super happy to see. You catch up, like just all these varying human interactions. And then there's other parts of my usual pace where I'm just kind of like working on music in a very solitary way. And I didn't realize how much I was used to those extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic became a thing where every day was the same.
Yep.
And I was never fully alone, but I was also never around a whole bunch of people.
Yep.
I was like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
come to Cleveland. Hey,
Yep.
you remember that time when you took a picture with my brother? And, you know?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like Groundhog Day, but also hitting neither of the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of weird little middle zone.
Where you haven't ever been.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what are the practices? I know you said therapy again during them, but do you meditate? Do any other kind of exercise on a regular?
I've gotten into exercising more in recent years. So for context, I was, like, as I mentioned when I said the gym was my weak point. I wasn't an athlete growing up, right?
Yep.
But I would say, like, for a good 15 years, I've done a bit of exercise just when I realized basically that, like, if I didn't do that, I'd be, like, physically exhausted. Like, I needed a certain amount of exercise to just deal with, like, the crazy ups and downs of traveling. But I'm talking about, like, maybe twice a week. I would have a trainer that I would see. I would maybe see a trainer twice a week. So it was like a pretty minimal amount of exercise. But even just this past year, my body started telling me, like, no, you need to actually, like, do cardio and, like, do more.
Well, because sometimes we look in the mirror, we're like, oh, we're in shape, we're not fat. Or, you know what I mean? We're not this, we're not that. I don't have a belly, I don't have this. But you don't think about just workout. It's like if you don't practice, right, you're going to be a little bit off. You're going to be a little bit rusty.
Yeah. Or for me, I sort of, like, I was always pretty skinny. And, like, about a year ago, I just, like, gained, like, almost 15 pounds out of the blue. And I was just like, what's happening to my body?
Metabolism.
Yeah, exactly.
Age.
So I had to start exercising more. So practice. More exercise now, running. I've gotten into running this past year, and it's helped me a ton. Even with fatigue, jet lag, it helps with all that. Yep. I've been eating pretty well for a while now. I've tried meditation a bit. I feel like I never, like, fully dove in. It's still something that I might explore.
Yep.
But therapy once a week, and then but also just, like, a healthy group of friends that that could just, like, balance out.
Bro, that's so important. It's so important to have friends that are regular, like, not even close to you. To have friends that are into things, that do what you do. You know what I'm saying? And then have a few kind of in between that.
Yeah.
It's so important. And a lot of the times, especially coming up, like, for us, coming up in hip hop, like, we didn't do that. It was like you said, keep plowing, keep pushing. Like, shut the fuck up, put your head down, just
or
keep pushing.
Just kind of have your game face on all the time, and, like,
suck it up.
Yeah, knowing who are your friends that you can take the game face off around, and just kind of sit on the couch and, like. Yeah. I had on the topic of, like, the practice in general, there's an acupuncturist that I saw for a little while in LA, who told me something that really stayed with me. That I may have, I don't remember. I might have told you about this once, but she said something, because I was going through a period where I was exhausted, and just kind of, like, fix me, and she would ask me, well, are you resting? What are you eating? Are you very stressed out? What's this? What's that? And she was kind of, like, listening to me talk about what those current weeks were like. And she said, you have input and you have output with, like, your energy. Mm-hmm. And you need to your input needs to match your output, is the sentence that, like, stay with me for life. Because it made me realize, as a DJ, a performer, my output is not even just when I'm performing on stage. When you put your game face on, when you go to an industry event and you got to catch up with this person, there's an actual effort to keep that,
for sure.
Right? That's something. Any kind of stress is some sort of output. It's like draining you. There's a lot of things that are output. So then it makes, when you start to actually tally that, then it makes you think about your routine and your practice and, like, what.
The scales start to do this.
Yeah, and you're like, well, what's my input? Eating well, rest, but also sometimes just, like, nourishing your soul, going to a museum, going to some sort of art show that just makes you feel it feel, like there's certain things like that literally fill you up.
Yep. Yeah.
That taking breaks, vacations, all there's things like that kind of like bring up your battery level. But it thinking about it as like an engine, like a physical system, made me realize why there's times where I feel like I'm running on fumes or I'm running on empty because I'm not filling up the tank. So,
It's literally beat juggling, but it's you, right? It's being physical with that, and it's being even and making sure everything's evenly distributed, and it's tough, because we don't think about it. And then, like you said, you plow through. That's why it's always so interesting. You always seem so calm.
Well, yeah, that's one
thing. You always seem
so
chill. But you're constantly, and I'm like, yo, you just did that. You just did this. You just played for this crowd. You're just out there. I'm just like, but you're always so.
But that's something that I've had to navigate also, and even just within my friend group or within the people that are close to me, there's this thing that tends to come up where, yes, people always tell me that I'm very even-tempered, and I always look like I have it together. And I had to learn to like ask for help.
Yeah.
Like I'm very much of I'm okay kind of person.
I'm gonna figure it out. I got this. I've always figured it out in the past.
And just don't worry about me. I'll be fine. And sometimes I catch myself doing the I'm okay thing, like a knee-jerk thing. It's not even a thought-out answer. It's a reflex to be like, I'm fine. Don't trouble yourself for me. I'm fine. And then I have to sort of question myself for a second and be like, am I? Am I okay? Do I want to ask this person to help me with this thing? Is there something that I can get off my load a little bit, or share, or even do I need to like bounce ideas on this thing that I'm sort of handling by myself? I don't need to be territorial with everything, but yeah, that doesn't come naturally to me.
Okay.
It
doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, right? Because it's a bit of embarrassment or shame, even, right? And saying
it's a little bit of that, and a little bit of like just whatever. I think how I grew up also is very much of like, don't worry about me, guys. Don't worry. You guys deal with your stuff. You don't need to worry about me.
But was that the culture in your house?
Maybe a bit. I mean, people say the younger siblings have it easier. But I think the flip side of that is a sense of like, because they've definitely butted heads with my parents a lot.
Okay.
So I think as a result, for me, it was like, I'm not going to give you guys a hard time. This is the imaginary talk to my parents. You guys already went through the trenches. And I have a big bro that's looking out for me anyways. So you know what? I'm fine. Don't worry. But that stays ingrained in you your whole life, this sense of like, don't worry about me, I'm fine. I think, and so the thing where you were pointing out that like, when I say that, my friends always say like, yo, you always seem okay. I think a few of my friends had to also figure out that they might, they can also still ask and be like, how are you doing though? You all right? And like, even sort of prompt me, like remind me that I need to like stop every now and then and kind of like look within a bit and be like, are you okay?
I mean, part of that is that assessment is reflecting, right? Yeah. Contemplation is awesome, being able to just sit there. And sometimes meditation doesn't have to be straight meditation like we talk about it, right? Yeah. A lot of it is just that sitting still, thinking about all I've done, assessing where I'm at, taking that inventory, which you seem very self-aware about. But it's like we don't all have that tool. We don't all have that ability.
Yeah, I think with me it's funny where it's like, if I make the effort to check in on myself, I can be quite self-aware. The tricky part is the first part of the sentence. If I do look under the hood, but sometimes weeks will go by where I just don't even think of checking.
Yeah.
And that's why I do therapy too, is like, I think some people who don't do therapy have this view that it's like this whole like, okay, talk about your parents and like all kinds of lingo that people think is therapy talk that no therapist actually uses.
Yep.
For me, all it is literally like, I've realized that I need to force myself once a week to just stop, put the phone down and be like, all right, how am I actually feeling? And that's the main reason I do therapy. It's just like, I know that it forces me to just stop, no matter how crazy a week is, for an hour once during the week to be like, all right, am I okay? Is there something that's kind of in the background that I'm not noticing? That because it's there. Is it in my blind spot?
Yep.
You know,
No,
here,
and
look there.
therapy is definitely our friend.
Yeah,
right?
but it's like it's the forced check-in that I like. Of like, all right, is there something that's creeping up?
I mean, I look at it like vulnerability is a superpower, right? Like being able to open up, have that conversation is super important for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's always something. And you know that those check-ins, if we don't do them, and again, you don't have people that can do them, especially as like say an entrepreneur. Like, have you ever actually had a job?
No.
Right?
No.
So you've been an entrepreneur your whole life.
Yes.
Right? And then like you said, not just an entrepreneur, I'm learning how to do everything as a teenager. I'm dealing with adults.
Yeah.
I didn't even get a chance to fully grow up around people that are growing up and doing the same shit I'm doing. Right?
Or get like a job review that says, hey, you're not you're ignoring this aspect of what you do.
Yep.
It was just me kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, which is tough, right? And you just continue and continue and continue. And if you don't take that time to look back, bro, shit can break.
Yeah.
You know, and it can be really heavy. But that demeanor, right, and then that ability to keep pushing, like, is wild to me. But then when you went from DJing and just doing your regular gigs, you was playing small spots, right?
Yeah.
How do you change from going to that to the big spots you do now? Like psychologically, what is different when you approach those things?
I mean, what happened in the middle of that also was when I was touring with Kanye, where I went from playing small spots to doing the Usher tour, where we were, playing in front of 13, 14, 15,000 people.
And before that, what was your biggest crowd?
I don't know, 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 2,000 at a DMC, like the bigger DMC battles. And that's like once.
But that's also just a competition, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than you being like a headliner or one of the main DJs and playing for those things, right? The competition, you come up, you do your set, you do your thing, the competition, you go back.
And you have people's attention. You don't,
you don't have to worry about that, right? Everybody's they're watching.
Yeah, they're watching, they're there to be impressed.
Yeah. When you go into a club, especially when you're doing these bigger things, they're watching to be impressed, but there's a lot more pressure. Like, you need to make us party, make us dance, you know?
But I think, like, that being said, right from the early years of my DJing, there's something about that turntablist scene that I came up in that sort of put me in front of a lot of different types of crowds early on, because that was a time period where people were curious about turntablists in general. So I was getting booked at like underground hip hop events, but also raves, but also sort of like experimental music festivals.
Okay.
Turntablists just kind of fit in all those pegs in those years.
Yeah.
So I learned to play for different audiences early on. And I think that helped me down the line.
And then, all right, then even music, right? We were playing mostly hip hop. When did like kind of like the dance music and EDM and all that kind of stuff start to?
That happened pretty progressively. Yeah, that happened pretty progressively during the sort of the mid 2000s. And it was a period of time where like, after, the first 10 years of my DJing, I was only playing hip hop. By 2003 or 4, rap was a little uninspiring to me. It was kind of like the TRL era, it was like it just didn't have that same sort of depth as some of the 90s stuff that I'd fallen in love with. There's some stuff I liked, but it was just like, it was getting a little candy coated.
Yeah.
But Serato was coming out, so I was starting to play, digital files. So I was able to like acquire like a lot of different music fast because I could just trade files with a couple friends, But also I was like starting to come down to New York more. Dave had moved here. I hadn't moved here yet, but he was here, going to Columbia, going to school, and then he started showing me a couple parties, some stuff that was happening downtown. You go see like what's going on at like Tribeca Grand or like APT or like Roxy Cottontail parties at Sway. I'm hearing DJs play like very eclectic sets. It's kind of that era when Stretch and Mark Ronson and DJ AM and even like the beginnings of Holotronics, and people were like doing mashups and playing different shit. So I'm kind of like taking cues from that and starting to flip it my way. So for me, it went from like being a hip hop DJ who I expanded my palette, not necessarily to electronic music right away, but just to like more of like a mixed bag. And then these blogs started coming out, and there was like newer styles of electronic music that I was finding on blogs that I liked. That was new and different, and it just it felt cool to me. So then I started playing that at my sets, but you know, within sets that were still a mixed bag and still had plenty of hip hop, and then that just kind of like took a life of its own.
Dope.
You know, and I started making remixes, and even that sort of like helped make the puzzle make sense.
And is that how
And it
kind
was
of
like
Fool's Gold?
I was in my mid-20s, so it was also, I think, part of a musical growth for me, where like I became a DJ as kind of a technician, you know, and then I really mastered that, and you know, won all these battles, got accolades. When I got to my 20s, I was probably going through some sort of maturation myself, where I started just being curious about more music, and that bled into my music. And yeah, that's also what led to eventually starting Fool's Gold, was, you know, just being excited about kind of a fresh take on music, and meeting a couple of other like-minded people like Catch Dubs and Roxy and Dust La Rock, and you know, just being like finding a new scene that I was excited about.
Yeah.
You know, and then realizing like, yeah, there's not even really a label that's like
Yeah.
planted a flag in this. Why don't we do it?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you had like Fader magazine would kind of cover that eclectic kind of world, but it wasn't, like you said, a label to do it. And especially not coming from where you guys were coming from.
Yeah.
You know, and it was dope to see like just the underground, everybody kind of come together, because Nick was at Fader at the time, right? You know, so like, yeah, those are good times, man. And then when did we rock? We rocked with like 2009 or 10 or something around there.
For like the parties and all that we did.
Well, we
together?
did the parties. Yeah, the parties were around 2008
8 or 9, maybe 9.
Nah, I think it started 9 or 10.
Yeah, the party with the snowstorm and all that. That was
Bro,
2009 or 10. Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah.
I still remember that when those walls were sweating. I had to get on the flight the next morning.
Oh,
I remember we did that. That was like an 18-inch night of snow or something wild. We're in the basement. It's just going. You know, and we did what, I think 5 holidays parties like that.
I think so. Yeah, something like that.
Like, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a great run.
Yeah.
What else, man? Shit, you've done so much. It's like, is there one thing that kind of sticks out to you? Like, it's like your favorite thing you've done, or the biggest accolade? It doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but just like one of those favorite things.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a couple things for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, that first DMC win will never be, like, nothing can top that in a sense, because it's sort of like, it just kind of like changed the course of a lot of things. It was, you know.
Well, before that, what did you think you were gonna do?
Oh yeah.
Did you have any clue of what you were gonna do before?
Or even in the year or two after that, I have interviews that I did in those years when I was 15, 16, 17, and I've gone back and read them later, and I'll be like, you know, I'm taking this stuff seriously, but I don't know how long it'll last, so I'm still in school because I don't know what I'm gonna, you know, I don't know if I can count on still being a DJ when I'm 40. I'd always say when I'm 40, you know, now I crossed 40 and I'm like still here.
Yeah.
But in those years, I was already like multiple time world champion, and I'd be like, you know, gonna finish my studies and get this degree and, you know, just do this DJ thing for as long as I can, but I don't know how long it'll last. So it's funny to think of that. But that first DMC will always be irreplaceable, special. Also because of, you know, there's so many amazing things that people have said to me over the years, of like, in terms of like the way that inspired, I guess, a lot of people to start DJing too, on some like, well, if this kid can do it, I can do it too, you know. So realizing that it touched a lot of people that way is really humbling.
Yeah.
You know, but I think also like, there's something about Fool's Gold where I feel like I was able to take a certain attention that was on me and turn it into a platform to help other people on the way up and celebrate and bring together all these different pieces of New York and a couple of other cities, but like the creative scene and help it all converge. You know, even just Fool's Gold Day Off as a series of events where it'd be like, yo, once a year we get everyone in one place. That's something I've always been really proud of too.
And I love the way it morphs, like keeps moving. It's like fluid, almost, right? Like, you know, you guys were this and that, and obviously things pass and dust, RIP, and you know all these different things. But it's like, I mean,
and even trends of music change.
Oh,
where
for
it's
sure.
Like, you know, after X amount of years, we would have to sort of even reflect ourselves and be like, all right, well, what style of music do we want to showcase this year when this is what's popping and da-da-da. But I always like that challenge of like finding the things that feel fool's goldish through.
I mean, shit, day and night, bro.
Years.
Like all those things.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Cuddy's a huge part of our history, and I mean, for me also, you know, some of the Duck Sauce stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Barbra Streisand.
I mean, come on, Barbra Streisand was crazy, bro. Well, you guys were number one on the dance charts, and
in a whole bunch of. We were number one in a bunch of countries, like just on the charts. Period, and it was like. We didn't set out to do that. We were just making some, you know, something for fun. So to have something that's like literally like a bug out between you and your friends, sort of like catch fire like that and be contagious like that and just make the whole world be like, we love this. And we were just like, you do? That's really special too.
Right?
And it's not calculated, where it's just like, yo, this is just me and my friend and a couple of our other friends around us. We're just goofing off.
But that's when it feels so good.
Of course.
Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, this shit can be so stressful. It's endless, right? Like you said, you're constantly plowing. Then there's so many expectations of what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do things. But maybe that's, you know, not ever having a job. Maybe that's not ever being confined to the thoughts of this is the way life is supposed to be. And you being able to just continuously go with that flow. Because you've kept flipping, and you continue to flip it for me. Like, I'm like, oh shit. It's still rocking. This is dope, yo. I love that. What do you think keeps you the most grounded? Because you've never been the celebrity guy to me, like ever.
I think it's because I started young, man. Like,
yeah, but I don't know if you think like.
In part, in the sense that like I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot, so there's, you know, there's not a lot that phases me. I mean, maybe there's just something in me. Maybe that's probably something in my personality that just kind of like. Doesn't get that phased. I stay excited. I'm a fan of music. I don't think people should be jaded, but there's a difference between not getting jaded, but also not getting too like. Let me get between that and staying grounded. But I think, you know, having those core couple people, you know, Dave and my family and some of my close friends that are just like. You know, they're my anchors, and they're there no matter what. You know, that I think that's helped a lot. I think the flip side of that is when you think about like navigating eras and stuff, is like the reinventions and the sort of like the challenge of staying relevant in some way, or you know, keeping a certain demand for yourself as an artist, because the industry is set up to sort of chew you out after a couple of years. And it's always about what's the new thing, and I love the new thing too, but I need to make sure that someone out there is still booking me at the same time. And even if I'm trying to stay quote unquote relevant, you don't want that to. There is a way to do that that feels phony or that doesn't feel natural. So figuring out the way to gracefully go through the times and keep things interesting and exciting, that's a real active effort. That doesn't just happen, you know? Anyone that you see out there that's got a career that lasts more than 10 years, there's a cunning, you know, strategic element to keeping it going past a certain amount of years. So that's something that, the more time went by, the more, it became a challenge in certain periods to just kind of keep the demand there. But I think that the healthy thing that came out of that was there's an element to like the longevity game that forces you to self-examine because you need to know what's unique about you. If your challenge is to convince people out there to book you through the years or to hire you or to turn to you for this or that, then you got to know what that you is, like what they're hiring. So, and I think there's a point where it stops feeling like I need to stay with it, where it pivots from that to like, here's what my artistic identity is. Here's what I stand for. Here's what's unique about me that, other people in my field don't really have. How can I keep that interesting? And when you start looking at it that way, where it's less about trying to keep up with other people, and it's more primarily about like, this is who I am, I know who I am, and I know what I stand for. Now let me just make sure I keep it interesting to people. Then it turns into a healthier thing.
Dope. So do you do like your values every year then? 'Cause that's what it sounds like. Like it always sounds like you probably do that assessment a lot more than just every year.
Yeah. I think it's a constant exercise.
Yeah. I mean, again, those are those boundaries, man, that we think we can't have. That are super important.
Yeah.
Who's been the most impactful?
What, like just one person the most impactful
it
in my
might
life?
be, well, maybe it's a DJ, maybe it's a business person, maybe for different parts of your world, if you have that, or has there have been anybody that's just been like...
I would say like in the DJ circuit, Jazzy Jeff has probably been the DJ that's I've been able to look at as a North Star for the longest period too.
Really? Okay.
Because there's definitely people that have influenced specific segments, eras. But when I think of the fact that like when I was 14 years old learning how to scratch, I was listening to, he's the DJ, I'm the rapper. When I learned how to produce, Jeff had a production studio. And when I realized that the longevity thing is a whole thing in itself, and even sort of growing into sort of like big brother role with other peers, all that stuff. He's been a great role model. There's certain periods of my life where, even just like you mentioned, when I got into the electronic thing more, coming from hip hop, there's certain periods where I felt like where I had to make my own path. There wasn't really a DJ that I could look at and be like, let me just do what that person did.
Yep.
There's a lot of things, a bunch of periods that felt like a leap of faith and be like, I think, like, I feel good about this, so let's just jump. But as much as that has sometimes happened, when I really zoom out, someone like Jeff.
And how long you known him?
25 years, I'm sure.
Oh, wow, okay.
I must have, or close to that. I'm trying to remember if I met him in the late 90s or early 2000s. Maybe it was early 2000s. But
did he ever show up to any of the DMC battles? I don't think.
Not when I was doing them, but, just kind of on the touring circuit.
Got it.
Yeah, on the touring circuit. But, there's definitely there is a real challenge when you start as a battle DJ to go from that to like a sustainable kind of artist DJ career, touring DJ, producer DJ. That's a difficult jump. It's like battle MCs, battle rappers that rarely, they don't always know how to,
because playing for that little 6 minute, is way different than hour, 2 hours in front of a crowd, and learning how to actually play the music that's going to make them not just stay, but dance and party and have a good time. And then, like you said, want to book you back.
So learning how to hold back and not just be like, look at my crazy skills, like knowing how to be graceful with that is a whole thing. And then even just learning how to be a good DJ, period, for like everything that isn't scratching, all the other
mixing and And
selection and all that.
were you good at that before Serato, or did Serato really just help that? Because you were one of the first people to work with Serato, right?
Yeah. I was their first endorsee, like literally the first one outside of like they're from New Zealand. I was kind of learning to rock parties before Serato, and then it became kind of like this thing that converged.
You got to really kind of build with it, though.
Yeah.
Because it makes it a lot easier. And I still think every DJ should learn to DJ first on just vinyl.
Yeah. No, but I was definitely playing off of like crates of records before Serato, because I remember like mentally the adjustment of not, leafing through sleeves of records, but like scrolling down on a screen, and just how your brain kind of doesn't quite. It takes a little longer to register a line of text as opposed to like, oh, the purple sleeve, oh, the sleeve that's missing a thing in the corner. Like when you see those records in the crate, you just know immediately what record it is.
And they're probably already organized for the most part.
Sure.
And you already know where you're at. And you've pulled that set out before.
Yeah.
And doing this is...
It's different.
And then you see multiple tracks of multiple of the same track.
Yeah. And there's too many tracks on your computer.
Yeah.
You're staring at tens of thousands of songs, and you're just like, what am I playing next?
Is your hard drive super clean now?
It's a work in progress. I mean, my friends think I'm organized. I think that there's...
Oh, so it's probably crazy organized in your mind.
It's relatively organized, but there's a level of chaos that like I could spend months trying to organize my songs and it'll never be done. It's organized to a certain extent.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So last thing, like I'm kind of dedicating this one to Clark, this whole thing. You got any good Clark stories or?
Man.
I mean, he was such a mentor to so many people. The thing that I always, like when I went to his funeral, is everybody thought they were the special one.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so beautiful.
He was able to speak to so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And what I realized was he's been that guy that everybody was coming to see since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
Right? So every party you went to, if he got hired to come here or hired to, DJ at a special event or wherever it was, everybody got to go to the booth and talk to him. Not everybody, but you got to go to the booth and talk to him, right?
Sure.
And so for me, that was his way of being able to speak to him, because I'm like, there's not enough hours in the day to be able to speak to all of those people, to check in on them, to see how they're doing, to lift them up, to tell them they're great. Like, it was amazing.
It's amazing, for sure. For sure. And like...
And when did you meet him? You had to be young.
Yeah, but I don't remember when I first met Clark. That's a good question.
Did you ever go to one of his Superman battles?
No, that was before my time.
No, that was 93. They had them,
Exactly, but my first battle was 97.
Yeah. Oh, duh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I went to 2003. You're right. That was before your time. So what was that?
So I didn't meet him then. I definitely know that once I moved to New York, I definitely started running into him then, just at certain clubs or whatever. I have memories of like just hanging with him at Santos and spots like that. But I must have like briefly run into him like just on the touring circuit before that. But I feel like it's, I moved to New York in 2006. Like around that era, I started like running into him more regularly, and even if it would be like industry events, and sort of realizing like, that's Clark Kent from, he's a real DJ, and he made Sky's the Limit and and he's also like kind of like in this position of influence in the industry, kind of like clocking like the the uniqueness, because again, that's something that's kind of rare. The being able to play the industry game, but also like having real skills.
And getting that respect. That he always had,
just the respect from everyone, but like just even a small story, because of course I've had the check-ins and the calls, and even just him reaching out, asking me if he could play a Fool's Gold party, and being like, I should be asking you, like that, like just the way that he would always be down for stuff. There's plenty of stories like that. But even a small thing is, right after he passed, there was all these beautiful messages from everyone, and then I did a post, and we're all reflecting. And then, following weekend or something, I go on the road, and I got my bags that I bring with me everywhere all the time. I always have, my Rimowa little carry-on suitcase, and my little Toomey backpack that sits on top. And I look at it and I'm like, wait, Clark gave me this bag when he did the Toomey DJ bag. And I had forgotten that it was from him, but because I was just in a space of reflecting, I remember just going, weekend warrior kind of zone. All my weekends, I got my 2 bags that I take with me everywhere, and just looking, being like, damn, this guy did affected my life so much, all the way down to this bag that goes with me everywhere, weekend after weekend. And I remember just kind of sitting with that thought and being like, damn, he really affected many levels of my life, all the way to little things I don't even think about.
Yeah, nah, it's so dope. Yeah. But yeah, man, that's it.
Yeah,
we're here. Appreciate your time and hanging out with us. Pleasure. Sharing your story, getting to know you a little bit better, and I hope they get to know you a little better as well, man. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course.
See you soon.
Yep.
Peace.